Right, so welcome to another mini video. This time we're going to be looking at what we call the heel board. This is the area where the rear subframe mounts. There are two holes there, and this whole area has a plate covering it. There's also a plate there covering God knows what damage there as well. So the first job for me is to get rid of these two plates and expose the damage below. I need to do the heel board first to keep those holes in a line before I do the rest of this. So it's time to get the grinder out. So those two plates have very quickly come off. They're actually galvanized steel, which makes a change. So they hadn't corroded on the inside, but they had been placed over rust. You can see I've got these wonderful holes again, so I'm going to have to do a repair in this section, and I'm going to have to repair the heel board. So that's my next job, a little bit more grinding so I can get to where I need to cut out, and then we'll be making repair panels up for this section. I should just point out that I'm always trying to maintain these two holes in the correct position because I really don't want to lose the alignment of the rear subframe. Right, so I've zoomed out so you can get an idea of what I'm doing. When I'm zoomed in, it's a bit hard to actually make out what bit I'm repairing. So for a start, the Mini is obviously on its side and there's a couple of bits of foam protecting it. The shell really doesn't weigh anything at all when it's empty, as mine is. And then just to zoom in, that is the area we are looking at now. So I'll just go a bit nearer so you can see. So this area is called the heel board. This is obviously the floor. This is the boot floor, and then we've got the inside of the pannier. The floor obviously then goes up and around and forms the inner sill. So this bracket here is rather rusty on this side. In fact, this side's a lot worse than the other side. This is where the front of the rear subframe mounts. So this, particularly that one there, is literally held on by a thread of steel. There's very little holding it on. So I've been very careful removing the metal that I've kept that aligned. However, because I've cut this section out here, that will move up and down, but I know it was at the top. So the next job for me, because that is so fragile, is to get my repair panel in and weld it in, and at the same time make sure I get the holes aligned correctly in this. So I've just reviewed a couple of the videos, and I've realised I've missed quite a lot. So it's a bit of a catch-up video, and more importantly I need to show you what I've got to overcome, because it's not always obvious when you're doing these cars. So I have indeed repaired all the pannier, corner, and then this whole strip down there. You can see the weld, and I have welded in the heel board repair. Now I did do the holes up here, and I was happy with that. However, I wasn't happy with how the floor section was going and where it is joining up. So what I have done, as you can see, I've bolted the subframe back on, and that is aligned to the two rear mounts. That's one there, and there's one at the bottom. Now they might be rusty as anything, but the holes are still in the original places, so that is good. Then at the front you've got that bracket there. That's what I'm trying to get correctly aligned, and as you can see I've got the bolts in, so that is correct now. And the bottom one, which was the first repair, is all okay. So I'm now happy that everything is aligned. I can now get that floor in. But that's what is causing me so much grief, because it's just not fitting very well. I'll put it in place and show you why. So that's the new panel clamped into place. And at the front, where the clamps are, that should be okay. I should be able to do some nice welds there. And the joint will be lapped, so that will be nice and invisible. Even down at the form there, it's okay. So again, I'm not too worried about that. Where all the pannier is, that seems to line up with the pannier underneath, so again that's okay, but it's all this back section here is not very good. And I can show you why when I look at it from this point of view. There is a big gap here. So this edge there needs to be flattened out and redone so it lines up correctly with the inside of the heel board. So that's where I am, and that's what I've got to do to get this panel to fit. Once I've got that panel in a position where I'm happy, I can then make another bracket here which will house or hold the nuts, which are the subframe mounts. As you can see, I've just nut and bolted that subframe mount in at the moment. So that's what I've got to do now. Do all these bits down here, get them all fitting nicely. Potentially I can then weld it in, and then I can make that subframe mount up. So I've had a little go at these corners down here, and I'm now happy with how that fits. There's very little gap there now, so that's nicely fitting in all the way along there. You can see at the back there, that panel there, I've added that in. That forms the little protection for the space in between the two sills from the pannier, I suppose you'd call it. So that's now in, and I'm ready to weld this into place now, so I'm quite pleased at the moment. So I'm now going to hit the welder and hopefully get this whole panel in, and then I can work out how to get the mount back in. So I managed to get that welded in, and I was quite pleased with how that went. I haven't dressed any of the welds up yet. Let's see what effect I've got. That's where the pannier joins on, so I've pull welded there, and then I've just done this butt weld down here. I'm quite pleased with how that went. I'll even zoom in so you can criticise my welding. So because that's a butt weld, once I address that with a sanding disc, flapper disc, that will disappear entirely, and there'll be no step there. And that's generally the same all the way along, so I'm quite pleased with that. Anyway, the next part for me was this bracket in here. Focus please, thank you. So you can see I've made one up, and I've still got the subframe mount there, so I know that's all in the right place. It took a little while to get it all correct, but with that mounted onto the subframe mount, I'm then going to weld this down now. So that's the next stage. Then it'll be time to get the grinder out, get everything ready to put the sill back in. So that is the subframe mount now welded back into place. So now, once that's cooled, I can take the subframe off and weld on the back of the heel board. As you can see, the sill is now all welded in. I've just had a review of all the videos and realised I've missed absolutely loads out. In fact, the last video I did was the repair of the heel board, and I was getting ready to put the sill back on, and as you can see, it's now all done. Nothing really hard about this area. You obviously have to make sure in the middle there you've got a jacking point, so that needs to be correctly lined up. There's a little bracket at the front there with a threaded hole inserting. It's quite useful to get that in place. And there's another one at the far end, right down there. I did have a few problems getting the sill in down that end. It was just all the panels, the heel board, the floor, nothing was really lining up, so it took a little bit of effort. But it's all in, as you could see. The only other issue I had in this area here, I actually did not do the edge there. I had a repair to do on the step, so that's now all done, and that's now fully welded into place. So hopefully that's been of use to you. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and please subscribe for some more mini bashing.